call it by shorthand. As our secretary has said numerous times, decisions for tribes are best made by tribes. And we feel that the Tribal Transportation Self-Governance Program allows that. And so we're very proud of it. It was developed and authorized in 2015 under the FAST Act. It was put into the Federal Register Notice as a final rule back in June of 2020. With that, we do want this webinar series to focus on federal agency employees as the primary audience. So how we work for and with Indian country, the White House Council on Native American Affairs is an excellent tool for that. And we feel that this helps us develop these topics and bring them into the forefront. At the end of this presentation, Special Assistant for the White House Council on Native American Affairs, Mr. Tom Garcia, will provide some closing remarks at the end and give us some information on upcoming webinars. With that, I would like to introduce Mr. Eldridge Onko. He serves here at the Department of Transportation as our Senior Tribal Affairs Advisor. And not only that, but he is also our lead negotiator in regards to the self-governance program. So with that being said, I will hand it over to Mr. Onko.
Thank you, Milo, and hello and welcome everyone to this presentation that we're going to have today on the Department of Transportation's Tribal Transportation Self-Governance Program. This is a program that is relatively new compared to some other programs that I will be talking about today in the federal government. And we're excited that the program it's just getting off to a new start, and we expect that this program is going to only grow as we get more word out to tribes and meetings that we have with tribes in different venues, whether we're talking about one-on-one meetings with tribes or meetings with tribes in collective gatherings like intertribal conferences and meetings such as that. So what I want to do right now is to share with everyone a PowerPoint presentation, and give me a moment to bring it up, and we will begin our discussion. Okay, this is the Tribal Transportation Self-Governance Program. You've heard me refer to it throughout this discussion by the acronym TTSGP. And so the purpose of the TTSGP is to provide tribes and tribal organizations with greater control, flexibility, and decision-making authority over USDOT funds used to carry out transportation programs, functions, services, and activities in tribal communities. Now, the basic purpose of this TTSGP was really derived from the Indian Self-Determination Act and Education Assistance Act that was passed in 1975 by Congress. By passing this act, Congress took made it a formal federal policy that tribes should have self-determination in their programs where they use federal funds to carry out those programs, functions, services, and activities. So there are two other federal departments within the federal government that have self-governance programs besides USDOT. One of those programs is carried out by the Bureau of Indian Affairs under Title IV of the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act. And the other program is carried out under Title V of that act by the Indian Health Service. Now, those two programs have been around for decades. And so the program that we're going to be talking about today with USDOT, our program has been around, as I indicated earlier, relatively recently in comparison to those two programs. So we will go through a little bit of background about the USDOT's self-governance program. It was authorized by Section 1121 of the FAST Act, and that program is now codified at Title 23 of the U.S. Code, Section 207, where it is now positive law. The final rule that was published for the TTSGP was published in the Federal Register on June 1, 2020. Now, that was a culmination of a negotiated rulemaking between tribal representatives and federal representatives. And that negotiated rulemaking occurred during a period after the program was authorized by the FAST Act, and it took almost a 5-year period for this negotiated rulemaking to establish the implementing regulation for the TTSGP. And that final implementing regulation became effective on October 1, 2020. So here we are, about 2.5 years from the effective date of the final rule, now that we have a self-governance program within USDOT. And so we are 2.5 years into this new program, and that's to be compared with the other 2 programs in the federal government that I mentioned that have self-governance, where those programs have been around for more than 2 decades within the federal government. So, but we will be talking a little bit more about those programs, and we'll go on to describe how a tribe can participate in the TTSGP. I would first of all point out that this is a voluntary program for tribes. Many tribes receive funds from the Department of Transportation, either through the Federal Highway Administration's Tribal Transportation Self-Governance Program, or through the Federal Transit Administration's funding programs, like the Tribal Transportation Program, or through some of the other programs that discretionary grant programs that are offered by the USDOT. So it's voluntary. If a tribe is satisfied with the administration of the funds that they received, that they've been receiving from USDOT, they're free to continue to do business as they've always done with USDOT. But for those tribes that want to take advantage of some of the new provisions that are allowed to them to be a self-governance tribe, a tribe can make a request to USDOT to participate in the TTSGP program. So, and the way that they would do that is that they would, first of all, submit a letter to USDOT that they want to participate in the self-governance program. We don't have a specific form that they would complete in order to request to join the program. They would simply submit a letter indicating that they want to join the program. The letter under the regulation should include as an addendum to that letter, a resolution or other official document that has been approved by the governing body of the tribe to show that whoever authored the letter has the authority from the governing body of the tribe to submit the request to participate in the TTSGP. Now, in addition to the letter and the supporting resolution, a tribe has to submit or has to satisfy criteria to participate in this TTSGP, and these are statutory criteria. Those criteria are financial stability, financial management capability, and transportation program management capability. The two criteria, financial stability and financial management capability, can be satisfied by three standards, by three evidentiary standards that we will review to determine their eligibility, to determine whether those statutory criterion have been satisfied. Now, we do that under three different standards. One is a conclusive evidence standard. A second one is called a sufficient evidence standard. And then a third we refer to as the independent evidence standard. So let me go ahead and go through those three evidence standards to establish whether the tribe can meet those three criteria for eligibility to participate in the TTSGP. The first standard is the conclusive evidence standard. And when we review information submitted by a tribe, if a tribe is subject to the Single Audit Act, then we will review those we will review the three previous year's audits from that tribe to show whether or not there are any uncorrected significant and material audit exceptions. And those would apply to whether for those programs by that tribe that are in either a 638 self-determination contract with the BIA or the Indian Health Service, or if they have a self-governance compact and funding agreement with the BIA and the Indian Health Service. So once we review those audits and can show that that tribe has no uncorrected significant material or material audit exceptions, then that tribe would conclusively meet the standards of financial stability and financial management capability of the TTSGP. Now, there is the second standard of review for meeting those criteria, and that would be whether a tribe has sufficient evidence to meet those three criteria. And that would apply to a tribe where they are subject to the Single Audit Act. And again, we would look at the previous 3 years of their audits to show whether there are no uncorrected significant and material audit exceptions, and where that tribe is a participant in the TTP program that's administered by the Federal Highway Administration, or for any DOT program grant award that was made to that tribe. So if a tribe can show that they don't have any significant material audit exceptions in the management of a DOT grant award or the TTP program, then then under the standard of sufficient evidence, that tribe could also be determined to meet the eligibility standards for financial stability and financial management capability. Now, we do have those tribes that are not subject to the Single Audit Act. And in those situations, under the TTSGP regulation, we have a third evidence standard that we can rely upon, and that would be the independent audit standard. Under this standard, a tribe can produce independent audits that can also show that there are no uncorrected significant and material audit exceptions for any of the programs that we have covered under the other two evidence standards. So if a tribe is a 638 self-determination agreement with the BIA or the Indian Health Service, or they have a self-governance funding agreement with those two agencies, or if they have a TTP agreement or a DOT grant award, if they can show through those independent audits that they have no uncorrected, significant, and material audit exceptions, then we can determine that that would also satisfy by the independent audits that they are eligible to participate in the program. So those are the three standards that we will use to determine whether they meet the financial stability and financial management capability to participate in the TTSGP. Another criterion that a tribe must also satisfy is the transportation program management capability. And this can be done by simply a tribe providing a narrative of their experience in either managing or operating a transportation program. And so those are the three criteria that we will look at for determining eligibility. Once we determine eligibility, we then are in a position to negotiate a compact and funding agreement with the tribe. A compact is a document that will be perpetual in nature, really sets forth the general relationship between the tribe and the federal government. A funding agreement will provide the terms of the funding that will exist between the tribe and the federal government, and it can either be an annual agreement or it can be a multi-year agreement. And it's important, and under the regulation and the statute, there must be a compact in place prior to the negotiation or the execution of a funding agreement. So as a practical matter, the compact and funding agreement can be negotiated contemporaneously and executed contemporaneously as well. There is a 90-day negotiation period that for the negotiation of those of the compact and funding agreement, and that negotiation period can be extended by agreements of the parties. If for some reason there is the tribe and the department cannot come to an agreement on a term that was subject to negotiation, the TTSGP regulation does provide for what's called a final offer process. And in this process, the tribe would submit the term that it wants to have incorporated in a compact or a funding agreement. And the department has 45 days to respond to that. And if the department does not respond to it within that 45-day time period, that provision would become operational as a matter of law. And we hope that it would not be necessary to invoke the final offer process for a tribe, because we would want to, through our alternative dispute resolution procedure, to have an informal resolution of that. And we certainly would encourage tribes to work with the department to informally resolve any kind of disputes that might come along in the negotiation. Excuse me. And of course, there is a retrocession and reassumption provisions in the regulation. Tribes can voluntarily decide that they don't want to move forward with a self-governance agreement, or for reasons that the department finds, the department can also reassume a compact and funding agreement in certain situations as well. So what funds can we include in a funding agreement? The tribal transportation program funds that are administered by the Federal Highway Administration, they can be included in it. Federal transit program funds can also be included in it, as well as department discretionary or competitive grant funds. In addition to the TTP funds, there are certain Title 23 federal aid highway funds that can also be incorporated, as well as some Section 5311 rural area program funds that are awarded to a state. Those funds, if a tribe is a recipient of those funds from a state, those funds can also be incorporated in a self-governance funding agreement if the state agrees to transfer those funds to the USDOT. Now, when it comes to the administering the program and the funds, tribes are very familiar with the government-wide OMB regulation at 2 CFR Part 200, and that regulation covers the financial standards, the procurement standards, record management, and property management standards, as well as the required single audits if they meet the required threshold, and as well as the federal cost principles. So tribes are very familiar with those provisions, and they will also apply to the Department of Self-Governance program. So what are the benefits that are available to a tribe that participates in the self-governance programs? Well, first of all, it is a self-governance program. So a tribe has a lot more discretion in how they can administer the funds that are used to carry out tribal projects and activities in their tribal communities. There's administrative streamlining that tribes can take advantage of under the self-governance regulation. When we have department rules, manuals, policies, those kinds of matters do not apply to a tribe in the self-governance program unless a tribe specifically agrees to be bound by those kinds of agency guidance or policies and manuals in matters such as those. And then probably, one of the things that tribes would really appreciate is that there will only be a single funding agreement. Many tribes have agreements with various federal agencies, various USDOT agencies. Under the self-governance, everything would be governed by one funding agreement. So there would also be the advance payment of funds to a tribe rather than, say, a cost reimbursement procedure. And the funds can also be used as local match in other federal and even non-federal programs. So those funds, when they become a part of a self-governance funding agreement, they lose their federal character. So those, for purposes of federal match or the local match in other grant programs. Here are some additional benefits that a tribe may have. Of course, this is the tribes can negotiate some of the Title I provisions that are in the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act to be incorporated in a funding agreement. And tribes can carry out their own employment and contracting preference laws. Also, the reporting requirements are reduced. The only reporting requirements that cannot be waived are those that are statutory. There are other reporting requirements that are imposed by USDOT or any of the USDOT agencies just as a program matter. And those types of requirements can be waived by a tribe that is a participant in the TTSGP. And tribes can also have access to federal supply sources that are available through like the General Services Administration, and they can take advantage of the cost savings that they can get through that particular program. And for the TTSGP regulation itself, if there is a particular provision that a tribe wants to waive, subject to the basis of that request, the U.S. Department of Transportation has the authority to grant a waiver of a provision of the TTSGP regulation. So tribes would also be subject to the federal court Tort Claims Act for any activities carried out under the self-governance program. And lastly, we do provide technical assistance to tribes in many areas regarding their eligibility, even for participating in the program, or for any other areas that we've talked about in the program today. Tribes that needing assistance in carrying out those activities, we are available to provide technical assistance to them. So here's our contact information for the self-governance program. There's the mailing address for the Office of Tribal Government Affairs, our telephone number and email address, and we do have a web page. And that web page is set out in there, and it has information regarding the program, and we do update that page from time to time with information regarding the self-governance program and other programs that we also administer in the Office of Tribal Government Affairs. So at that point, that would conclude the presentation that we have on the Tribal Transportation Self-Governance Program, and certainly we welcome any questions that persons might have regarding what we've talked about today. So thank you very much.
There's a question asking to show the last two slides.
Okay, excuse me, let me bring that back up again. Okay, there's one slide. I'm not sure what other slide they wanted to have brought up.
I think that's the one they were looking for, the contact information. Thank you for that, Eldridge. I think if you can leave that up for now, we'll give them another minute or two, but I would note in doing this, one thing that we had seen, and as you know, the Cherokee Nation right now is the one tribe that has a signed agreement with us. And after they were done, we had seen I don't want to say a large influx, but a number of tribes start to request to begin their participation. We can share the slides as well, I would note. We can get those to Lisa and her team and make these slides available to everybody online. That way you may have them. And we hope that will give you all the information that you need. But we had seen a large increase of tribal requests to join the program and to learn about it. Next week, as you may know, is the Tribal Transportation Self-Governance Conference, or sorry, not the Tribal Transportation, the Self-Governance Advisory Committee is meeting down in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we will be there. Eldridge will be there. Our Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs, Orlando Teller, will be there. And we will have a table with some information on the program itself. For those of you who haven't attended the self-governance conference, I think it's an outstanding conference. It gives you a real opportunity to sit down and press the flesh with tribal leaders across the country. I believe it's the singular conference that has the highest concentration of tribal leaders at the conference. And so we think it's a good opportunity. we make the most of it. I know that we've already gotten a number of requests to meet from some of our tribal partners, and we've been facilitating those, and we hope that similar information that we're going to be sharing there will be useful to our tribal partners. As noted in the chat too, this is a recorded webinar and it will be posted, so you can access that as well. Are there any other questions? To give us some closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Milo. On behalf of the White House Council on Native American Affairs, I want to acknowledge your work and the work of Mr. Anko for bringing this timely and very important information to all of us here today. Since the White House Council was restarted in the Biden-Harris administration, climate change and its impact on tribal communities, economies, and lifeways has been on the forefront of our efforts. This webinar series is designed to provide educational resources to all of you in considering these impacts every day in your work that you do. If you have ideas for future topics, please share them in the chat. Reach out to me or someone on this team that you have met today. I want to encourage you to stay tuned for future webinars. In July and August, we're planning to focus on wildfire impacts to tribal and indigenous communities. We'll be sharing more information soon, so please follow us on the Eventbrite channel, White House Council on Native American Affairs Climate Adaptation Subcommittee, or check the Council's webpage for more details. Again, thank you for your participation in today's call.